Hey folks, welcome back to LeafGreen vs. Blue. We're here on Route 3, it's the route leading to Mount Moon, and I'm showing this because we are about to catch a temporary team member. I know this is kind of a cop-out, but I figured that since Spearow here will be helping out for at least the next couple of major battles, I figured it'd be worth showing his capture. So Spearow is the other of the normal flying types that you can get at the beginning of the game, and if you ask me, Spearow is the better of the two, especially in first generation. I've been playing through Blue again because of the 3DS re-release, and the big difference between Pidgey and Spearow is that Pidgey gets Wing Attack, which has 35 base power in Gen 1, and a bunch of 2-turn moves in terms of flying moves. Spearow starts with Peck, gets Drill Peck by 29. Just overall, much better move pool. And I believe Spearow's attack stat is also higher. In terms of stat difference between first gen and third gen, special attack, special defense, and special are all the same number, and it's a weird number. It's 31. Not 30, not 35, 31. And I don't know. Most Pokemon, it seems, don't have kind of weird non-multiples of 5 as their stats. I thought it started becoming more common in like 5th and 6th gen, but here it is, Gen 1 Pokemon with a base stat of 31. It's messed up, it's sick, it's wrong, and I hate it, because I'm really annoyed by those kind of things. Anyway, Kenya there will be a temporary member of our team. Now then, here in Mount Moon, there is something of a boss. This is why I was making kind of hums about trainers that kind of look like bosses if you look at them in good lighting. Super Nerd Miguel here actually throws out 3 kind of, I don't know, mid to late game Pokemon at you. And so each of these Pokemon that he has 1 or 2 stats that are like significantly higher than what you would expect to encounter at this point in the game. Grimer here actually has 80 base HP and 80 base attack, which is, it's a fair amount more. Granted, it's not super strong. You can see it's level 12. All of his Pokemon are level 12, which means that they are probably a lower level than you by this point. You've had Route 3 and all of Mount Moon to level up, and here he is. All of his Pokemon are the same level as Brock's weakest Pokemon. On the other hand, you might not have any super effective moves against him, actually. His 3 Pokemon are Poison, Electric, and Poison in that order. And unless you have a Butterfree with Confusion, you probably won't have anything to specifically exploit their weaknesses. So, a funny thing about these 3 Pokemon, because they're not available until later in the game, in first generation, they don't expect you to have them really at the levels that Miguel does. And so they all kind of have garbage movesets at this point. Grimer had Disable and Pound, and doesn't learn anything else till level 30. It's adjusted a bit in Fire Red and Leaf Green. Voltorb here, his amazing, and I shouldn't say his because they're gender neutral, Voltorb's amazing stat is Speed. This thing is going to outspeed you, unless you paralyze it like Walter did, because it has 100 base speed. There are fully evolved Pokemon that are slower than that. It's very fast, very fast. But just like Grimer, it doesn't have much to work with in terms of attacks. It has Tackle, great, and it has Screech, which is okay, you know, it'll make you weaker. It's also just very fragile. It's especially hilarious in Fire Red and Leaf Green when it has Charge, which powers up the next electric-type move you have. Voltorb doesn't have any electric moves at this point, so it's not a concern. Now, Coughing here has 100 base defense, physical defense, I should say, which means if you're just using Scratch or Pound on him, it could take a while to get rid of him. I could also point out in Gen 3 he has Levitate, which makes him immune to ground moves. You're probably not going to use any ground moves against him, unless maybe Geodude gets Magnitude. That could be a possibility. But really, he's not super difficult in either version. Miguel can poison you. Grimer and Coughing both have Poison Gas in Gen 3 and not in Gen 1. But Smog can do it in Gen 1, so. Pack some antidotes. It might be a bit of a rude awakening, given that there haven't been many poison Pokemon up until here. But hey, maybe you have some left over from Viridian Forest. Overall, I've never found him very difficult, honestly, I have to say. Maybe I'm just over-leveled by this point always, but I've never found him too tricky. Anyway, now for a real boss fight. Up here, north of Cerulean, we have the third rival battle, second mandatory one. This one I remember being kind of a butt when I was younger. I'm a better gamer now, so it's not as hard, but kind of a butt. He leads off with Pidgeotto, and Pidgeotto has a lot of the same differences that it had when it was a Pidgey in its previous battle. It still has the Gust and Sand Attack differences, it's just it's a higher level. It's level 17 in Generation 3 and level 18 in Generation 1. You know, they make all these like minute one-level changes between the originals and the remakes. And sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, and most of the time I just don't really understand why the change was made, because that one level, especially as we go further on in the game, is inconsequential. Anyway, Walter just kills it. Next up, Rattata. Rattata? Actually, kind of formidable in Gen 1. Less so in Gen 3. So in Gen 3, it has Tackle, Tail Whip, and Quick Attack, all normal moves. None of them particularly strong. It does have the Guts ability, so if you're trying to paralyze things or poison them, that will increase its attack and make it more dangerous. So don't do it, just attack. It's pretty simple. So Gen 3, probably not going to put up much of a fight. But Gen 1, it has Hyper Fang. And Hyper Fang is 80 base power. That is very powerful for this point in the game. Plus, it gets Stab. It won't be super effective against anything because it's normal, but Stab plus 80 base power, that's a 120 base power move being used on your Pokemon right now. And I don't know if I'm making a conscious decision to use Growl on it over and over to make that Hyper Fang less dangerous, or if I'm just doing it to counteract potential Tail Whips. But Rattata, Gen 1, actually kind of a beast. I mean, it'll be eventually outclassed in terms of stats as the game goes forward, but don't underestimate Hyper Fang. Seriously, it will mess you up. I remember I looked this up. The Japanese term for Hyper Fang, the Japanese name for the move, Certain Kill Fang. This is a move that was deliberately given to Rattata to compensate for the fact that it's an early route normal. And it can flinch you, 10% chance of flinching. Run in fear. Hide the children. Anyway, next up is Abra. Abra's a joke in both versions. And yet, it had a change in level. It went from 15 to 16 in the original to the remake. Why? I haven't the foggiest, because now its evolution doesn't make sense, because it evolves into Kadabra at 16, but now it just doesn't make any sense. It's a joke in both versions because all it can do is teleport. In Gen 3 it has Synchronize, so again, if you use a status move, it'll backfire on you and you will get that status move as well. So there's sort of a like, hey, don't use status moves on some of this guy's Pokemon, but he can't hurt you. In Gen 1, he literally cannot hurt you because he cannot run out of PP for teleport and start struggling. He literally cannot hurt you. Last but not least, Charmander, who went up a level for the remakes. Why? I haven't the foggiest, because it's still late on the evolution. It doesn't gain any new moves. Couldn't frickin' tell you. But there is a difference from the previous fight in that he now has Metal Claw in 3rd generation. And that is a kind of a safety mechanism for you against Brock, is why it was introduced. But now, if you decide to use a Geodude against him to exploit that fire weakness to rock, he now has a counter against a Geodude, basically. So, that's something to keep in mind in 3rd gen. It's entirely possible that you can weather a Metal Claw, because you have high physical defenses to Geodude, and then just one-hit KO him with a Magnitude or something. You know, it's not super threatening. He is the highest level. Don't use a Grass type. Blah blah blah, all that. Anyway, I'm showing the cutscene for Bill just because I really like it. I think it's a neat little, like, kind of surreal, weird thing inserted in the middle of this relatively grounded game. Gen 1, or Kanto, I should say, has kind of an ongoing thing about relationship between technology and nature with regards to Pokemon. You have Mewtwo as an experiment. You have Porygon, an artificial Pokemon, and you've got Bill accidentally, you know, recreating the fly. It's neat. It's interesting. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.